1.
Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on, good question, May 17th, 2024 at approximately 4:30 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I use to guide virtually every movement I make. With this in mind, I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people over the years with varying degrees of success, depending on their own efforts. Now, today, actually this week, we are going to be looking at leadership, what it is, what it has to do with your image, and really how effective it is. Now, I'm probably going to say some things that are going to make people take a step back and go, I don't like what you're saying. The sad reality of it is it's make people happy. It's about pointing out the reality of what we're dealing with. Now, before I get into it, I do want to say a very special thank you to both LA Moon and the Storm, and the Storm and Shadow for making certain this all runs smoothly. You know, they are the moderators that handle the back end of all this, and that's all. It saves me a whole lot of headaches. Now, coming in with the gold, we have Kevin. How you doing, Kevin? Glad you could make it. You know, we're finally back in the air with a whole new ball game as to what we're looking at from this end. You know, I've been avoiding certain topics like the absolute plague, and some of them I still will. Philip, you are in with the silver. And yes, we are back. And I believe the last time I heard it put that way, you know, you're back or we're back, was from Ghostbusters 2. And no, we're not here to bust ghosts. Sorry, they can live freely. And we go down a little, and Steve Knox, you are in with the bronze. How you doing there, Steve? Hopefully things have been going well. And Joe, you are in with honorable mention. Yes, I did get your message. And I'm really happy to see things are starting to come active again. You know, I'm betting that's a bit of a relief from your end. Now, let's just make sure I'm sitting right here. Yep, that's as far as they go. Okay, now. Yes, I just got back from a holiday. Quite frankly, the first one in years. Right. They finally opened the border up, so I went south. Now, one of the flights going both directions for me were an absolute flaming nightmare. But I will tell you this. I don't know about you guys, but I hear a lot of negativity around one airline in particular. Okay, and every business has its problems. You know, every business has their problems. Christine, how you doing? Yeah, I am. I'm glad to be back. And yeah, I'm doing well enough. Just fighting a little bit of, I believe Storm just called it an optical migraine, meaning I can't see the screen at all. Yeah, it looks like I'm looking through a kaleidoscope right now. You know, the neat little part about like I said, I flew by Air Canada for the most part, and I've heard enormous horror stories about what they can do. But I will tell you, much as we had a really rough start getting off the ground, they did an absolutely superb job in making connections to get me rerouted and get to where I was going. And I'll tell you, with my stress level the way it goes, that's a challenge. But I did get one heck of a wake-up call while I was down there. You know, while I was down in Reno. They kind of did me a favor, you know. I said going down to Reno that I had a good track record in casinos. 9 times in, 8 times I won. Well, now they've changed everything to digital. And I'll tell you, the reality of it is that the floor workers were absolutely virtually 100% useless to me. Right. So I lost the money going trying to figure them out, but I did figure out one thing. I'm not setting foot in another casino without somebody going with me that actually knows the way to find the machines I'm looking for. Because I'll tell you, modern tech, not my strong suit. But something dawned on me while I was down there. We have a leadership problem in this world, not in any given country. Although the countries have leaders as well that fall under the same category. So the reality is, let's look at what real leadership is. We'll deal with the rest of it afterwards. But right now, we're going to look at the essence of it. Leadership is literally a question where are we here? I'm just looking at this and looking at what was written here. Yeah, that would do it, Christine. If you're claustrophobic, you are not climbing into a plane. Now, while I was down there, where are we? Yeah, Philip, I'm telling you, much as that's a cute thought, I've never played cards in a casino before. But the reality is, what the front of the machine say and what the machines actually mean, very different issues. Which is why I'm not going into that side of it too much. Suffice it to say, it was a great learning curve, cost me a little bit of money, but I don't have to worry about it again because I won't go back. Makes it kind of convenient from that end. I will tell you this though. When we take a look at leadership, you gotta ask yourself one question. Now, everybody in the world is a leader to somebody. But what you gotta ask is, are you looking for a negative reaction or are you looking for a positive one? And whether you're a leader by design, as in you go, I'm going to do, as I've said, I'm going to build an empire. Or you end up a leader because of the fact you're doing things that work and other people follow you. Prime example, okay, and I have no idea how it worked this way. But I had this one day, don't mind me. I had this one issue. I was walking downtown years ago, and every window I stopped at, no, in all fairness, Philip, I honestly didn't see them. Primarily because I fell asleep, and that pretty much ended the Northern Light thing. But I will tell you, I do remember when I was a kid, I remember hearing the Northern Lights. And that's a sound you never forget. And by the way, what they show you on YouTube, what they've recorded there, is nothing compared to reality. But no, I was walking downtown, and like there were all kinds of shops on the main strip downtown, as you can well imagine. So I'm walking along, and every time I got to a new window, I'd stop and I'd start in the bottom left-hand corner, and I'd track with my eyes all the way up the side of the window, cross the top, down the bottom, down, back to the starting point. And then I'd move on to the next window. And before long, I've got like 15, 20 people following me down the sidewalk, doing exactly the same thing. Now, this was not, well, I guess technically it was by design. But eventually, I've got 15, 20 people walking down. No, this was actually in Kelowna here, Philip. This is years back. But this guy finally comes up to me, and he goes, he looks at me and he goes, what are you doing? What's going on here? I said, to be honest with you, I frankly don't know about the people behind me, but I'm window shopping. And he goes, what do you mean you're window shopping? Why are you're moving your head like that? Why are you window shopping? I said, I'm looking to see which window will fit the hole I'm looking to fill. Right. I said, as for these guys, I have no idea. I didn't ask any of them. Well, the guy just looks at me and he busts out laughing. He goes, you are twisted. I said, yeah, but at least I'm honest about it. I pulled the same stunt, a similar stunt, in a park during a major social event here, right? I stopped in the middle of an open field and started staring at the sky. And I just stood there for maybe 3 minutes before people started to gather. And finally, somebody comes up to me and asks, he says, what are you looking at? Because some people were pointing up at the sky and they were talking amongst themselves. And, more and more people were gathering. We must have had a good 50, 100 people in this crowd. And this guy comes up and says, what are you guys looking at? Well, I said, I can't tell you about any of them. You're going to ask them. It says, me, I just stopped in the middle of the park and started looking up in the sky to see how long it would take to see a bunch of people looking up at the sky. And the guy goes, and? I said, about 3 minutes. He just looks at me, busts out laughing. And again, it's like, you are very twisted. And he walks off. And, from my standpoint, it boils down to this. Leadership, whether by design, in my case, it was a setup. Okay, many of you end up in a leadership position because, oddly enough, you think about what you're doing. But let me ask you this. Do you know how to tell if you're looking for peace or you're looking for conflict? I got told by one person, that they're absolutely looking for peace. I said, really? You're telling me you're looking for peace, and yet your first reaction when you hear pebbles bouncing off bouncing off a roof is to go outside with your shotgun in hand. I said, tell me, how does that qualify as peace? Okay, and this is the thing. When you look at the way that leadership happens, somebody starts doing something, and sooner or later people start following. Now I'm going to go up here before I get any further down the road here. Yeah, I see what you said there, Christine, about Tim Hoffman and Dave had flight issues. Yeah, I ended up with, it was a nightmare from my end. I don't travel well to start with. Philip, the answer to your question, I honestly don't know how to explain it, but they are so much better than what you hear on YouTube. So much more clear, so much clearer. Poor English. Okay. But I will tell you, if you ever have the pleasure of hearing them, you will never listen to them on YouTube again with the same ears. Where are we here? Oh, that's always fun, having your non-corporeal neighbor starting to talk enough to wake you up. Philip, you only like the takeoff, landing, and turbulence? Personally, I like the peace and quiet, but hey, to each their own. The neat part about it from my standpoint, the point about leadership is that I never had any interest to speak of sitting on the top of a totem pole at the front of a line. Never had any functional interest in it. But I have had to come to this, stop and think. When I went to Reno, I had to come to a very simple acceptance. When I went down there, I had to come to the realization that much as I do not see myself as any different than the rest of you, frankly, apparently a lot of people do. So I'm just going to have to work with that one. But if you're a leader, ask what you are teaching people. I'll tell you, the amount of business people I talked to this weekend, either current business people or people who claim to have a business before, right, that treated the other people like absolute, and I mean waitresses, the security staff, just workers in another industry. The number of so-called leaders or so-called professionals that treated standard people like absolute garbage, man, to me, changed everything in the way I was looking at it. Because in my opinion, if you're a leader, either by design or by circumstance, your responsibility, and I call it your responsibility or your obligation, my opinion, it's all I work with anyway, it's your job to help people turn around and find a better way to interact, not make them feel worse about their own job. Now I know I'm going to get flack from some people about what went on, okay? Because I found out two massive problems down while I was in Reno. And bear in mind, this was not just in Reno. This was on all the traveling that I did, and as well as in Reno. What I found was so-called leaders, so-called up-and-coming icons that people look to and go, "Oh, you've got it together." What I found is a staggering number of them are self-important. And I know that's going to really upset some people. If you are a professional or recognized leader in any industry, household, country, doesn't matter. If you are a leader, ask yourself this. Are you leading people in a way that is helping them to feel better, helping them be more productive? Or are you leading them and expecting them to look at you and go, "Oh, you're special. Okay, you should treat, I'm a leader, therefore you should treat me better." Is that the way you're treating the people around you? Because I'll tell you, especially in this city I live in Kelowna, a lot of millionaires, housing is off the charts, right? And yet the millionaires expect the restaurant workers to wait on them hand and foot and absolutely do nothing towards cooperation. The leaders don't. Now, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. When you're talking about your own position in life, okay, do you feel that your position dictates that other people should look up to you or other people should treat you better than anybody else? Well, that's a funny thing, Philip. I believe that's Santa Claus's job. We'll get into him months down the road yet. But the sad part of it is this. Okay, look in the mirror. Ask yourself this. Does the state you're living in, and I don't mean the geographical one, but the way you're living, does that warrant you being treated better? Okay, is the size of your pocketbook indicative of success? Or is the clothing you're wearing or the hairstyle you've got, or maybe it's just the watch you're wearing? Does this make you deserving of better treatment than other people? Okay, if that is in fact the way you look at it, you're welcome to it. Okay, but if that is in fact the way you're looking at it, you might want to consider one thing. What happens if that bank account of yours collapses? How are the people that you're associating with going to treat you? Okay, or for that matter, if a good, well-seated friend of yours is all of a sudden in financial trouble, are you going to look at them as being lesser individuals because their bank account collapsed? If this is the case, you may have a bigger problem than you're aware of. Now, I spent 24 years in restaurants, okay, working in them. And I never did have a, shall we say, congenial attitude towards the treatment of other people. I have never seen anybody as more worthy of respect or less worthy of respect than myself. I've always lived by karmic law, as in, do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. You know, when I took a look at it, there's another neat little thing I'm going to get to in a bit. But when I look at this and the number of people that are in positions where people look to them and say, hey, you're doing a good job. Like, I mean, take a look at this. You've seen the way I talk to people here. Now, I do my best to be congenial. But what happens if you meet me in person and all of a sudden I start disregarding the rules that other people have in their own houses, in their own businesses? What is your opinion of me going to do? Okay, if I'm talking about all this stuff, about equality, about being nice to people, what happens if you meet me and the first thing you find out is I complain about everybody else and I just point out all the bad things that they're doing? What's going to happen to your view, and what is likely to happen to your view of me? And for those of you that are going to go, oh no, nothing at all, I'm going to keep looking at you the same way, I'll call you on it. And I'll tell you right now, not a prayer. Okay, I've seen way too many people I'm just looking at this. And, Phil's just saying, in many religions, it's taught there are angels in disguise amongst service workers, widows, orphans, strangers, and prisoners. And they're taking notes of who's naughty or nice. Well, here's the thing. I do agree with you in some ways, but I will tell you this. Religions also talk about peace on earth and accepting everybody as is. I'll tell you, there are some parishes, I'm not going very far down this rabbit hole, there are some parishes or temples or whatever you want to call them that do just that. They reach out to help people. But the massive majority of the ones I run into are absolutely full of bigotry, prejudice, and ostracization, even amongst their own people. Okay, so the way that religion, do I believe in God? Absolutely. Do I believe in Christ? Absolutely. Do I believe in what is being taught in the Bible, in the temples, in the churches, in the covens, in individual ones? Absolutely. Okay, but, and there are very few that I will put out by name. That I can think of one coven that I would point out by name, but without a direct go-ahead, there is not a snowball's prayer I'll point and put my foot in. But, I look here and Phelps just going, I don't trust people who I see as being nasty to other people. I agree with you. My problem is I don't trust people to start with. I've seen way too many times this go sour. But the number of people that claim to be leaders or have been lifted up to a leadership position and take that leadership as, oh, I'm special. Therefore, you're telling me I'm a leader. Now, you treat me better. You follow me. Not, I will guide you. You follow me. You give me accolades. You pat me on the back. Because you already said I'm a leader. Okay. Now, the Gaddafi, who you know as the Nords, the Ennead, who were the people leading that were in the place of the Egyptian gods. Okay, They did that. People came in, the locals went, oh, you guys are gods. You're our leaders. Guide us. Tell us what to do. They got treated like absolute garbage. Mankind has learned this extremely well. Okay. Now, I will tell you, you ever meet me in person, and you'll find I'm pretty much the same way. As in, what I'm saying here is the same way I deal with people. But I will tell you, I bit my tongue so badly this past week that I had a minor heart attack on site. No, I didn't go to the hospital, so let's not go there. So I mean, I take a look at it, and I'm looking at this. LA is going, I don't believe that they're here to take notes. More likely, they're here to change people's lives for the better. If they continue to be naughty, I think they'll affect an event to change that behavior. And yeah, definitely, Philip, it is petty politics. I look back 10 years, just 10 years, and these so-called first world countries. Now, again, I'm not picking on any one in particular. Lily Pond, how you doing? Glad you could join us. The biggest thing that I look at, a decade ago, these so-called first world countries. Okay, you look around, and including the people that had weight issues because of medical conditions, things like adrenal problems, thyroid problems, whatever. Okay, if you saw 10% of them were 40, 50 pounds overweight, you were hard pressed to find them. I mean, they stood out like a sore thumb, but you were only looking at 10% ish. And I'm only estimating, I have no idea what the real numbers were. When I was down in Reno, I kid you not, 80 to 90% of the people I saw were a minimum of an estimated 50 pounds overweight. Now, I realize there's issues out there. I also realize if I can drop 60 pounds by just cutting down the amount I'm eating and altering my level of exercise, if you are not dealing with a medical problem, okay, you can do exactly the same thing. Now, I will tell you that when I said I'm building an empire, I'm not interested in building an empire where anybody looks at me and goes, oh, you're so special. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate the compliments. I appreciate the support I've gotten from virtually everybody in this chat room. It's been phenomenal. But do I do this to get a pat on the back? No. We can call this a little bit selfish. I'm a full empath. And every time I see somebody treating another person like garbage, it physically hurts here. Okay. So I do my best to bite my tongue. I do my best to stay away from people. But creates all kinds of complications. Joe, you have asked, can an apparition take form and turn into a very big block of ice? Well, the word can says it all. The answer is yes. The question would be, why? Okay, like to what end would they do it? But can they do it? Certainly. Absolutely you do, Philip. I mean, here's the funny thing. When we look at the States in particular, about 20 years ago, there was, and bear in mind, this excessive weight problem is across the world, aside from in the countries where they don't have enough food. Okay, but about 20 years ago, there was a massive problem with overweight then. And the U.S. government came out with a brilliant strategy. We've got a serious problem with obesity. Don't take my word for it. Look up the facts. Check the facts yourself. But my memory of it says they went, okay, we've got a massive obesity problem in the world, in our country. Therefore, we're going to do something about it. And they went, from now on, if you're over, if you are over 500 pounds overweight. Now, I couldn't tolerate being 50 pounds overweight. But if you're over 500 pounds overweight, you're now morbidly obese. Amazingly, they did that. The obesity problem was cured. The obesity problem dropped by approximately 2 million people overnight. Coincidentally, by the way, the number of morbidly obese people jumped from 0 to 2 million overnight. Now, this is a leadership problem. When a leader is going, let's cover the problem up and let's just ignore it, this is not good leadership in my eyes. Okay. The thing that we got to look at is, what are you aiming at? In my case, it's real simple. I'm looking at simply turning on the lights and making certain people have a viable way of altering the way your life is going. Okay, the tools I talk about are literally the same ones I personally use. I'm looking at myself in the mirror. What am I, an orchestra conductor? Put this here. We'll start writing things in the air. You guys figure it out. But I talk about this issue because it's one that has become massively, from an individual and a societal standpoint, it has reached critical proportions in my eyes. Now, let me ask you this. In your house, okay, do you personally feel that if you've got rules in your house, do you feel people should follow those rules? Or do you expect people to follow your rules? Okay, if you do, which I do in my house, I tell people, you come through the door, rule is real simple. Don't steal from me, but if I let you through the door, food is not something that we worry about. If you desire something to eat, ask or grab it. It depends on how long you've been here. But when we take a look at this issue, and Philip, you have done, you have pointed something out here. Philip says, in America, we have a major issue with stress eating, often stress eating of less than healthy foods. Absolutely. Okay, now here's the kicker to it. That is, we have that same problem up here in Canada and in many of the countries around the world, especially the ones claiming to be first world countries. I'm first world, therefore I'm better than you. Not a snowball's prayer. Some of the happiest people I've ever met had very little to their name. And Phil does put the qualifier in here. If the rule is reasonable, yes, I expect them to follow it. I'm a firm believer, if you're putting a rule in place, make certain it's one that you're willing to follow. Oh, it's nice. Joe's just talking about a white apparition that he saw. And I will tell you, seeing the paranormal is great. I'm going to go sideways here on you, because this also applies to the leadership problem. I hear so many people talking about, I've had this experience, that experience, and I am not going to tell you, I don't believe that person, I don't believe this one. There are people I listen to and I'm like, how is that even physically possible? Maybe you did. Can I corroborate it? Not a prayer. But I will tell you this, with the amount of people that have corroborated things I've seen, I question my own sanity half the time. Like I'll question and people turn around and go, no, I know exactly what you're referring to. But we have to look at the issue of what leadership is. Understand, if you're a leader, either by design or by circumstance. In other words, if, like myself, I've said I'm building an empire, period. That's what it is. Okay. Now, I am intending on becoming, you know, I have every intention on becoming an industry leader. But I will be danged if I'm going to turn around and start treating people as though I deserve better treatment. Now, here's an example I'm sure all of you guys have seen. So I'm just going to ask Rain, but first, have any of you ever seen somebody walk into a restaurant? There's a sign that says, please wait to be seated. Have you ever seen somebody walk into a restaurant, walk by that street, that sign, and go, and they don't even slow down. They just walk by the sign and go and sit down? Anybody ever see that happen? Not have you done it yourself, but have you ever witnessed it being done? Yeah. Ellie goes, I don't question my sanity anymore. I let it alone in the corner and hope it doesn't scream. The big question I'm looking at is this. Do you understand, do you even accept the complications that come up here? One of the things I have found is so many people take a look at signs, absolutely ignore them, right? Just totally ignore them, and then complain when they don't get proper service. As a leader, in my opinion, it is your job to set the example, because the people that don't know, quite frankly, and I said it before, people are kind of like lemmings. Okay, they will follow whoever's leading. They don't question where they're going. They just replicate the same behavior. This is a problem in my eyes. And if you don't believe it's a problem, take a look at the way your society is running. Okay, and this applies to any one of you from any country in the world. Doesn't matter to me which one, because my experience has shown that it is a global pandemic. Okay, only this one is threatening to kill civilization, not people. Okay, although we kill civilization, we might have a problem with killing people. When we take a look at it, I agree with you there, LA. I mean, I've seen some horrendous things in my life. Okay, I spent 24 years working in restaurants. And I'll tell you, they have a staggering job to do, especially when you get people to go, I'm special, treat me better than everybody else. I demand my service right this moment. Now, let me ask you this, and this is just something to think about. This is not something to identify yourself. I'm not asking you to put your hand up and go, oh, I'm special, I should be treated better. Just a thought, Philip, but and I think you'll probably agree with this. In a children's hospital, I can understand the munchkin screaming. If you don't like the screaming, don't go by the hospital. Just stay away from it. Because I'll tell you, the poor little munchkins have no clue what's going on. And it's the only way they know how to communicate. I remember when my first wife gave birth to went to get our first son delivered by C-section. She got wheeled off to get prepped for surgery. The second the elevator doors closed, I heard two blood-curdling screams come from the delivery section. And I tell you, I sat there and I'm like, she got the better deal. Because those two are just having no fun. But when we are looking at leadership, okay, it is imperative be a leader of the most positive kind. Because I will tell you this: when I witnessed what I did, okay, this past week, my estimation. No, I'm not going to tell you names. I found out a few names from people around me, but the people that I saw that were they were either identified as leaders or they claimed to be leaders. the way they treated people, I'm looking at them going, I wouldn't follow you unless I were paid to. Okay, because I'll tell you, the moment you see people treating leaders, treating their own staff, or the local patrons, or the local people like garbage, okay, they are no longer, in my opinion, really deserving of being called a leader. I mean, technically, they're still a leader, but I will tell you, if that's the example that's being set, you might want to take a look at the state of society. That might be half the problem. Phil's going, people who live across the street, apparently the primal scream are new. Newsflash, and I'm not debating they were. Okay, the thing that we gotta understand, okay, is in a children's hospital, and if you're moving in next door to a hospital, patients change. Maybe they end up with a couple of kids in there that were in real rough shape. But if you're buying a place or moving into a place next to a hospital, it's kind of like pulling in, and buying a place next to a slaughterhouse. The smell is not going to be something that's enjoyable. Again, it boils down to do your own research. But when we are talking about leadership, the way you treat people is going to have an impact on your image, on how people see you, thereby rather critically damaging the leadership role you're professing to hold. The biggest thing we have to take a look at is, what is it you're trying to do? Are you trying to promote peace, tranquility? Are you trying to promote cooperation and prosperity? Or are you simply trying to say, hey, I'm better than you. Look at all the stuff I've got. Look at the new fancy clothes I've got. You can tell mine are really new and fancy. Oh, Philip, that's another one I've heard of. I've talked to people that literally will buy a house on the beach and then complain about the fact there are people on the beach. Heck, I knew one person who used to complain to me all the time. She said, I don't know if I'm being paranoid, but I feel like people are always following me everywhere I go. The really funny part? She went to university and took on-site residence, and then complained people were following her to class. Yeah, LA. Yeah, LA saying that caring for the really sick kids where pain is involved, those have to be really committed, because it is a horrendous job. I've often thanked my lucky stars that my munchkin only has a mild case of CP. I don't know if I would have the patience for the extreme cases. Not for lack of desiring to, but I just don't know if I do. And I have no functional interest in finding out. But when you're treating people like garbage, it will stand out. Now the reality behind it is this: I have always treated people equally, to the point that I probably should have been fired. Like what I told a millionaire in a country club I used to work for. I have no idea what the guy's name was. In all fairness, I didn't know what it was to start with. But this guy told me, now I was a houseman. I was basically a glorified dishwasher. This guy calls me over. He goes, hey, go get me a drink. I looked at him and I went, no. Well, you work here. I said, yeah, but I'm not going to get you a drink. Well, I want a drink. I said, great, the bar's over there. Well, this went back and forth. I wouldn't move. And my boss finally comes out and goes, and he looks at me, not at the millionaire. He looks at me and goes, what seems to be the problem? I said, the problem seems to be this genius wants me to go and get him a drink, and wants me to go get him a drink. Right. And my boss looks at me and goes, well, why can't you? I said, well, I could. He says, well, then why don't you? I said, it's not my job. Right. Well, he's asking. I said, number one, he's not asking, he's demanding. Much more importantly, I got no problem, boss. You want me to go get him a drink? I can go get him a drink. I looked right at the guy. I said, I'm going to go back there to my section. I'm going to grab a glass of dishwater, and I'm going to bring it back over to you. If there's a clean dish on the rack, I'll grab the clean dish, but I'll grab the dishwater. Right. And I said, I don't have a problem with it. And I looked back at my boss and I said, you want me to do that? I got no problem. Why he didn't fire me, I have no idea. Yeah, I have no doubt about that. Yeah, Philip's just going, I told a judge that under the laws of our state, legally speaking, he was committing perjury by stating assumptions from the bench without question and without questioning them. He didn't like that. Well, no, they don't. But if you're a leader, you've got to stay, in my opinion, you've got to stay focused on setting the right example. Setting an example that you yourself would like to be followed. And this is the thing. When we're putting the energy into leadership and literally, in my eyes, bullying people, this is, technically it's leadership. Yeah. And they goes, I think you'd be amazed at how much patience a person has if there's no other choice. Oh, yeah, I have seen some remarkable things on that note. But when we look at the energy of it, if you're going to be a leader, understand, yes, people will follow you, sometimes without questions. Okay, sometimes without question. The fact of the matter is, that when you've got people following you, do you desire them to follow you in being a bully, in being a problem? Or would you rather they figure out how to deal with things? Now, this is the one thing you stated here, Philip, that I personally don't agree with. Okay, Philip is just saying, I like to make bullies uncomfortable. I don't personally like making anybody uncomfortable. Of course, I haven't figured out how to bite my tongue. This is why I ask a very simple question to people. When you meet people, when you meet people, do you make them happy because you left? Or are you making them happy because you showed up in the first place? I always tell people I make everybody happy. Some by arriving, and most of them by leaving. Now, I make no bones about it. I am not politically positioned properly. But I will tell you, the leaders I've run into recently, the ones that have been identified, I'm looking at going, there is not a prayer I would follow these people if I had no functional reason. If I had no functional reason to do so. Okay. Because the reality is, what I saw with a lot of these people, like I was in a restaurant, and I absolutely would never set foot in that restaurant again, because 75% of the staff I would have fired on the spot. They were that bad. Okay, they were that poorly trained, that poorly behaved. The reality of it is that when you're looking at leadership, there is something about it. Somebody is going to be in the front. Bear in mind, the person in front is not always the leader. Okay. Sometimes the person in front is simply the first one that got to the door. Technically, the leader that first, but they may not be the one driving the crowd. And all you have to look at is how you're behaving. Is your behavior towards somebody the same kind of behavior you would appreciate being put towards you? Now I asked this question. You know, I've seen that happen, Philip. I really have. Um, Philip just going, after making a bully uncomfortable, people will come up to you after the bully's gone and tell you you made their day seeing someone stand up to the bully. Absolutely. The question is, do you do it to make the bully make the bully uncomfortable, or to step in and help the other people feel more comfortable? In my case, I do the same thing, and I've done it repeatedly. Okay, but I made the mistake this past week of biting my tongue. Okay, bad idea. The last time I did that, I had a stroke. Okay, this time I had a minor heart attack. Okay, not a real brilliant idea. This is why I decided to take a look at this whole thing of leadership and image. Because the reality is, if people see you in a certain way, if you don't want to be that way, don't be that way. But don't take advantage of the people that are putting you there. The key is, as it was put to me, because I've told a lot of people, I've got no interest in being on a pedestal. I'm very good at knocking myself off it. And this one gentleman, he looks at me and he goes, look, Keith, there is nothing you can do. People are going to put you on a pedestal one way or the other. The key is, do not let yourself believe you're on that pedestal and you belong there. So I mean, from my standpoint, I have no clue what my blood pressure did because I didn't take the machine with me. What I do know is that it created some pretty serious problems. Now, from my standpoint, I came home knowing, and I've mentioned to you guys, I'm making this happen. So I came home and I went through everything. I knew it was behind the 8 ball. I got it all worked out. Okay. Now all I have to do is stay focused on it. The real kicker to it is this. When you look at the position you hold in life, do you have anybody looking up to you? Anybody at all? This may be a stranger that you've seen on the street. This may be a child that you're raising either because they're yours or because you adopted them or they're foster kids. Maybe you're running a parish. Maybe you're running a coven and people are turning to you for guidance. Are you, by example, guiding these people in a functional fashion? Because I'm telling you, the way the society is going right now, what the leaders are doing is driving you right smack into the bin. And it's up to you whether you're going to go there. I wrote an article which is going to be, I've got to finish writing it, but the backbone of it is already written. It's coming out in the June edition of the newsletter. Okay. And what I did was I said, okay, when it comes to restaurants, okay, I see people regularly walk by signs that say, please wait to be seated. Now, here's the silly part. Especially if you've worked in a restaurant and you do this, you're really going to wonder what you learned. But the reason for that sign is so the waitress or the waiter has the ability to know where you are and serve you properly. Okay, but I've seen people walk by these signs, walk in, rearrange tables to their own accord, even when asked not to. Okay, and then these same people complain that they're not getting the service they desire. Now, here's the thing. Like I said, have any of you seen this kind of behavior in anybody? Never mind putting your hand up and going, oh, I was stupid enough to do that. It doesn't matter to me whether or not you admit it. The question is whether or not you change it if you have done it yourself. But here's the kicker. Okay, and this is what I wrote in the article. That's a restaurant. Now, can you picture what do we got here? Yeah. LA goes, pedestals are for statues and flowers. The same stuff that goes on people's graves. Absolutely. Could not agree with you more, I don't think. Philip, if there are people that can't read, It's technically possible, but I'm talking about so-called industry leaders or people that are being looked at as leaders. People that are dressed so they're clearly financially in better shape. Okay, or they've spent a lot of money they shouldn't have. Okay, the theory is they can read. They look through the menus and complain that something isn't absolutely the same. Now, if you can read a menu describing what a meal is, I'm sure you can read, please wait to be seated. It's just my personal opinion on that. But what I've seen is I see these people do it, and here's the extra question for you. If you're one of these people that figures, okay, I don't want to wait to be seated, I'll just seat myself. Ask yourself this. Have you ever heard of a time when somebody walked onto a plane and went, I'm boarding now, and I'm sitting in that seat? Where they didn't wait for the flight attendant to say, this is where you've got to be, or at least check and say, do you know what seat you belong in? Like, if people aren't permitted to do that on a plane, why should you do it in a restaurant? Other than the fact the odds are the restaurant won't crash. This is the thing about leadership. If you're going to lead, if you're going to take that mantle or accept that mantle, if you end up in a leadership position by circumstance, not by choice, are you going to make that a journey into a more comfortable life for people? Are you going to show them how to get along or how to get things done in a cooperative fashion? Or are you going to show them how to stand on their own, to stand up and say, hey, I'm me, I'm better than you are? Okay, if your intention is to show people that you're better than they are and teach people that way, you can bet your bottom dollar those same people are sooner or later going to look at you and go, I'm better than you. Okay, now I'm better than you, so you bow down to me. I have a problem. I don't bow down to people. Heck, I barely acknowledge half the people. Well, that's not true. I acknowledge the people I pass by. Quite often just straight strangers. But am I going to look at somebody and go, oh, you got a fancy suit. This makes you better than me? Not at all. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, you're not clean shaven. Your clothing isn't state of the art. You're worse than me. Not a prayer. Every person out there has the same value. Now, and yeah, Philip says they usually wait for their boarding call. Something about the fact that the airline stewards and the stewardesses won't let you on the plane. Okay. And I've seen people throwing off planes because they push the issue. Okay, I would love to see some of these people, if not all of them, thrown out of the restaurant when they start treating the staff that poorly. To me, it boils down to this. When I look at the whole issue of leadership, are you treating people the way you desire to be treated? If you're not, step down and good luck with that. Step down and go, look, I can't lead. Okay. But unfortunately, these people go, I'm a leader. You're telling me I'm a leader. Therefore, I'm the one you listen to. Don't think for yourself. Do what I tell you. This happens in industry. It happens in households. It happens in every spiritual movement I know of. Okay. And like I said, I only know of one coven that I would sit there and go, yeah, if you're in their neighborhood, absolutely go there. Take their lead because they won't lead you down the wrong road. But I will also tell you, here's a restaurant. I'm not using any restaurant by name. Not on the air. Okay, way too many problems I don't feel like dealing with. But this one restaurant I was in, I absolutely, if I had owned the place, I would have fired 3/4 of the staff. Phil goes, I used to play trivia with a wealthiaras who flew charter instead of commercial to compensate for our OCDs. and to sit with her dog. That trivia website no longer exists. Joe, just my personal opinion, but the name of the day doesn't change the way people should treat each other. Cinco de Mayo, yeah, there'll be more people. Absolutely. But we live in a world where so many people are so stressed out. It's absolutely insane. Only I found out why. Okay. It's because so many people are stuck staring at the idiot box, or, they're stuck reading pixelated text before going to bed. People are no longer sleeping. Net result, shorter tempers, less attention span, and frankly, bigger complications. Philip, that is terrible. You should always put the mayo either in a bowl to put the tuna in it or straight on the bread. Keep your fingers out of the mayo. But when we take a look at this whole thing, okay, society has come along and said, let's focus on immediate gratification. I'm better than you. I deserve a treat. I deserve service now. Okay. And that is not the way reality works. Okay. But if we continue down that road, that is where we're heading, is into an absolute disaster. Now, at this point, we have the ability to change it. Okay. If we keep on the road we're on, I mean the we as in the royal we, all of us, if the massive majority of us do not pull our heads out of the sand, we are going to create a complication that we're not able to compensate for. One of the biggest things I look at in this world is not, people have come to have devolved in society from the issue of what do I deserve? What can I get? What are my rights? Instead of what can I do? What are my responsibilities, my obligations to a future society in better shape than the one I currently live in? Now, I managed to do something I swore decades back when I had the money to do it. I've watched many times, especially when you're looking at some of the shows I've seen, where a guy will come in and he'll treat a waitress like absolute garbage and then give her a massive tip. Right. In my opinion, I swore a long time ago, when I have the money to do it, and I've got it all laid out, I've had it laid out for years. Okay. I'm going to treat people the way I desire to be treated. But it started this weekend. We had a waitress that went so far above and beyond the norm. Now, I knew at the get-go, I would have to start with a minimal amount. Okay. I knew to start with, it would be a small amount. Because, I watch these people on the show, on these little shows going, here, I've treated you like garbage, now here's $1,500 as a $1,500 tip. I'm like, there is no way I'm doing that. Okay, I won't treat people that badly. But I did swear when I had the money. Dean Pal, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Hey, curiosity thing. Oh, there we are. I'm glad you could join us there, Dean Pal. I swore I was going to, when I had the money, I would. Well, this waitress went way beyond. So what I did was I took my meal. I cannot tell you specifically, but it was just a standard meal. Okay, just for me and my other half. And we ended up, oh, thank you so much, Dean. I do appreciate that. It was just the two of us, and our breakfast amounted to $44. Okay. Now, my standard rule, and it has always been this way, if it's reasonable service, I will tip usually at about somewhere between 30 and 50, depending on what I've got. I will tip $5 or $10. Okay. So in this particular case, I tipped 10. The waitress was phenomenal. Okay. And in this case, I will tell you exactly who it was. Okay. We had a waitress by the name of Suzanne working in Cafe Central inside the Silver Legacy Hotel in Reno, Nevada. But she treated us so well that I gave her the standard 10, right, I normally do. And then I gave her an extra $20 on top of it, meaning the bill was $44. The final payment was a $30 tip. Actually, I think it was a $35. Right. But this is because of the fact she went so far outside the realm of normal treatment that she deserved it. I have no idea what her home life was like. I don't have any clue whether or not she was struggling or not. All I knew is that she treated us so well, she deserved it. It was that simple. And then, my idea was simple. The first one is 20. The next person I do that to, when I've got the money to do it, and I have no doubt I will pull this off because I set this one up, it happened. The next time I do it, I'm going to end up giving somebody, depending on what I've got available, either $40 or $50 in addition to whatever I normally pay. Okay. And the thing is, this is not what I'm saying you should do. This is what I do. Okay. In time, I will have the money to walk in, grab a cup of coffee, have a cup of coffee or two or three, which is more likely, and then leave a $1,500 tip on the table and go, all yours. Because when I've got the finances, when I've got the position that I can do that, why not? The money doesn't do a lot for my way of looking at the world. But I'll tell you, it doesn't buy happiness. But boy, does it change people's outlook. It's like, holy mackerel, this is just what I required. Okay. But a one-time payment doesn't solve a problem. Except it may make that person sit there and go, holy mackerel. And for those of you that are going to go, yeah, but that kind of money, they're just going to burn it. What difference does it make to me? Realistically, okay, if you're giving a tip, you don't question what that person is doing with their money where it comes to their paycheck. Why worry about what they're doing with their money where it comes to their tip? Now, I will tell you, the one thing I have watched for is I do make certain that the tip goes to the person. So it doesn't get counted in amongst the tips per se so much as a gift. Honestly, Philip, when we got to Reno, aside from the initial problem with getting there, the trip went off way better than either one of us was planning. So we are all ready. We now know for an absolute certainty we're gearing up to reconnect at the end of August and spend a couple of weeks together. So yeah, I would have to say Reno worked out well. I even as I told her, this whole trip, this whole connection was going to do one of two things. Either the relationship was going to stabilize or it was going to come completely apart. Well, considering we planned a get together at the end of August before we left the hotel, I'd say it went reasonably well. But again, I look at it going this way. I said this was the way I desired to treat her, even spending the week there. Okay, we still, to this day, almost 4 years in the making, have not had a fight. Never had an argument. This does not mean everything has gone smoothly. But when you're looking at leadership, if you're going to say you are some way inclined, back it up. All the words in the world are absolutely useless if the people find out that the way you look at people, the way you treat people in public is like garbage. Okay. I could not be more appalled by some of the behavior I saw with people. You know, and the number, I only saw one person that was on that was, and he wasn't overweight. Well, he was huge. I saw one person that I looked at his physique, and he walked very much like a gorilla. You know, and I don't mean his knuckles dragging, but I mean he walked with his arms out like this. And he literally couldn't do anything about it because his butterfly muscles in here were just way too big. Most people I witnessed, and like I said, 80-90% of them were at least 50 pounds overweight. Now, this is something that the so-called leaders of industry should be working with. Not the idea of, hey, let's see how fast we can fatten you up. Unless, of course, and somebody tell me this, do these major moguls, do they have some sort of a contract with cannibals where they're just trying to fatten the population? Because I'm telling you, that's what it looks like. But the essence of leadership to me is real simple. If you find yourself in a position where people are looking up to you, they are coming to you for guidance, make absolutely certain that you are living what you're talking about. Make certain you're not doing something like, do as I say, not as I do. Because most of the people that I ran into, especially the ones that were either self-professed or deliberately put themselves in that kind of situation. Okay. The reality of it is those people created an interesting problem. Where is what I'm looking for? That is not helping me at all. I can't read when things do that. Okay, there we are. That's much better. The reality of it is, if you're in a position of leadership, let me ask you this. If you've got somebody that is in a position of leadership, do you expect them to behave in a certain fashion? Preferably an amicable one, I would be inclined to think. Oh, nice. Yeah, absolutely. The funny thing there, Joe, Joe's just going, I should have my dream journal number 3 complete by the end of 2024, and start on the 4th dream journal. Now, I've talked to you guys right here about this thing about lists. Okay, I know you can't read this, but this is the list of stuff I've been working on today. I've only got, that one was done. I've only got on my list left 5 items left on this list. Now, the fact that it's down that far means I've got about 25 items on the list, of which 80% are complete. But what I did with those is I've taken to putting them into a binder or into duo tanks. Okay, I'm sure some of you recognize these. Because I wanted to know what I was up against. So, that's a list. This one is my to-do list from January to March. Again, I realize you can't read it. Then I've got this one I'm working on that covers April to June. and I'm already into May, obviously, because so are you. And I'm already set for July to September. The thing is, like you, Joe, I'm hanging on to them for keepsake. Robert, how you doing? Glad you can join us. Yeah, the once I got to Reno, the trip was fantastic. You know, the journey, the flights between the train to get there and to get home were an unmitigated nightmare. So I spent 2 days, and it's a good thing I left Friday alone. Like I left everything alone until Friday, because I was just dead on my feet for 2 days. But that being said, I did find out something really remarkable. I've been struggling to break the 190 mark. Well, I was up at almost 193, right? And I've been struggling to get down below the 190. On the week I was away, I didn't pay attention to what I was eating. I didn't pay attention to what I was drinking. Didn't drink. I only, I think, had two glasses. And that's in the entire week. But what I did do was I ended up dropping 3 pounds. So I'm below the 190 now. And now I'm absolutely adamant I'm going to stay there and get below it and stay put. Okay. Now, right now, oh, look at that. Let's take a refresh on that just to make certain. Wild. We are now at 619 subscribers. And like I said, the number of subscribers at this point is not the relevant concern. I mean, yes, I definitely desire this to monetize eventually. But what I'm doing is I've got a very definitive point in mind. You know, I'm telling people, yes, Phil goes, oh, the shrinking man. You know, the thing is, I've decided, okay, people are going to, for whatever reason, and the Lord can figure that one out. You can figure that one out. I don't see myself literally as anything special. Yes, I heard all sorts of people tell me, but you are. Okay, doesn't change what I see. Every one of you has the exact same capacity I have. Now, I had the pleasure of helping somebody out. They were having a whole lot of health issues. And I had the pleasure, when they asked if I could do anything, I said, I'll do my best. I've got to contact them tonight to see how it's progressing. But I worked on them, and I kid you not, when they first came to me, they were walking bent over like this. Okay, not quite that bad, but you know, but when we got where I finished working on them, they were actually able to stand totally upright. You know, now I'm nothing special. You've got the same capacity. You can put a smile on somebody's face just by looking at them and saying, job well done. Okay, how many times have you walked by a street worker? And I don't mean a lady of the night. I mean somebody that's cleaning up the garbage. How many times have you walked by one and thanked them for doing their job? Okay. Now, yes, it's their job. This doesn't mean that they don't desire a thank you or a pat in the back. Okay. Let me ask you this. No matter how much you like your job, do you appreciate it when somebody says thank you for doing it? Regardless of what it is. Because there is no job, there is only one job that I personally feel is more important than any other job on the planet. And that happens to be the job of parenting or of guardianship. If you are looking after a child or an adult, doesn't matter which, whether it's a case of you're a parent, you're a foster parent, you're a block parent, you're a teacher, doesn't matter. If you've got people that are looking up to you for guidance, that's the most important job in existence in my eyes. Yeah, I have no doubt knowing you, Robert. I have no doubt about that at all. Robert's just saying, I did that while in the hospital. I tried to make people feel appreciated. Absolutely. Because I will tell you, that means more to any staff member, any job anywhere, than all the rest of it. And all the pay in the world doesn't make you feel better. I have seen way too many people in jobs where they are miserable because of the way they're treated. And net result, they end up spending more money trying to convince themselves they're happy than they ever do trying to take care of themselves. Now, I knew when I went on this trip, I was going to dig myself into a small hole. Okay. And I did that. I knew it was going to happen. I didn't worry about it. I didn't check any of the bills aside from paying them. And as it turned out, I made a miscalculation. So yeah, I'm definitely behind the 8 ball. Okay. But I went into it knowingly. Am I going to turn around and blame anybody else? Not a prayer. Because I'm the one that made the decisions. I'm the one that acted on it. But when you are taking a look at it, I'm going to go into much more of it this week. Is literally working on the whole concept of leadership and image and how that affects. But the energy you put out as an individual, whether you believe you're a leader or not, doesn't matter. Okay, it really doesn't. It's whether other people believe you're a leader. Now, here's an example. If you're walking down the sidewalk, okay, or you're driving, if there's anybody behind you at all, you're a leader. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to call it that, doesn't matter. If you're in front, you're a leader. Okay? If you're dressed better than somebody else because you got more money, have it happy, enjoy the money. But do not look down on people on any circumstance, save if you have to be taller than them, absolutely look down on the people you're dealing with. Because you're going to have a witch of a time not doing so. What do we got here? Joseph, I'm glad you're getting there. Just a thought. Okay. I mean, I know you're open to a lot of things, but while you're on the IV, literally take either hand, doesn't matter which, put it on the bed because the bed stays put. Okay. And it's easy to get to. But put your hand on the bed and feel the excess energy run out of your hand through the bed into the floor below and let it dissipate. Okay. Let that negative, that ill-induced, and that ill-laden, cancer-laden energy, let it go. You'll find it accelerates your healing. Now, I know this works because my own father and my own former father-in-law have been diagnosed with small cell rapid spreading cancer. I worked on him for an hour and a half, 2 hours one night. And the following day, after a 6-week coma, he woke up. And the only thing that he said was, I'm hungry. He did not know he had lost 6 weeks. Robert goes, I just heard Mario saying I'm a wiener. I'm not entirely certain who Mario is. And that's okay. I don't have to be. But I do know what I personally think we should do with wieners. Okay, depending on which ones you're talking about. But I always like the barbecue. Quite often I microwave them. But I'm a little twisted. Oh. Well, there's a chat that I don't mind. I don't play Mario Kart. But I can't act very well. But when we are looking at leadership, understand how you treat other people, how you behave while other people are watching. That's the example you're setting. That is what you're guiding other people. Whether your intention is to guide them or not, doesn't matter. That's what you're doing. Okay. And again, you don't have to believe me. It's kind of like if I tell you gravity exists and you go, I don't believe in anything I can't see. Tell you can't see gravity on the whole. But if you don't pay attention to it, it's going to play havoc. Philip goes, there's a great video of a woman and her mom in the car. What the mom doesn't know is their daughter left a sign on the bumper. Honk and flip off my mom to help us celebrate April Fool's Day. See, now I'm sure that's probably funny. Okay, I've been accused of not having a sense of humor. My own son quite often will come to me and go, Dad, that was supposed to be funny. I admit wholeheartedly my sense of humor is, shall we say, complicated. But many people find it really enjoyable. Many people seem to find pranking enjoyable. I have, like, the few times people have pranked me, number one, I never personally found it enjoyable. And because of that, I personally won't do it. The reality is I've got very stringent rules that this is the way I behave. And I don't alter them. I was asked for a friend of mine's, for his stag party. The whole bunch of people says, hey, let's get this guy really drunk, get him in only a trench coat with a key to a bus locker, and put him on a bus to the nearby city. Right, and leave his stuff in the nearby city. And they said, will you help us set it up? I looked at him and I said, not a prayer. But it would be funny. I'm not doing it. They went, well, why won't you do it? It'd be really funny. I said, because I find it hard to justify doing something to somebody else that I would literally hunt you all down and kill you for. If I don't like the treatment, I'm not going to perpetrate it on somebody else. And as a leader, this is something that we've got to get out to the leaders of the world, to the moguls, to the parents, to the teachers, to the politicians. They've got to start treating people in a way that is equal and conducive to a better world. Because if we stay on the path we're on, this society is going to go into a place we haven't seen in centuries. Quite frankly, if it stays on its current path, we're likely to be bombed back to the Stone Ages. And this idea of people going, oh, we need to overthrow the government. Stupid, stupid, stupid move. Never worked in the past, not going to work in the future. Unless people change their behavior and start working with each other to make this a better world. For virtually everybody. Unless we start doing that, we are going to have a massive problem. I keep seeing people sit down, and they will watch people for hours go, this world is falling apart. God's going to sort it all out. The aliens are coming. They'll straighten this mess out. I'm telling you, this doesn't happen. Okay. LA, thank you for the heads up. I appreciate that. I'm not going to go down too far down that rabbit hole because there's way too many complications. I will tell you, I wholeheartedly believe in God. I wholeheartedly believe in Christ. What I will tell you is that many people have told me that the Christian religion comes from the Sumerian, is based on the Sumerian mythos. And I don't mind. I'm not the researcher. I have no doubt that may well be where it came from. The message is still clear. Be nice to each other. That's it. Treat each other as you desire to be treated. Quit looking at each other as though somebody is of less value than you. If you've got more money, great. Spend it as you will. It depends on who you talk to, Philip. You know, it really does. I've heard people say the aliens keep telling us fix our own planet, and many of them do. And then we got the people that go, the aliens are coming in, they're going to straighten it out for us, so we don't have to. This idea of sitting on your fingers and praying for something to change isn't going to happen. You know, I can sit here now. Fortunately, she's been cooperating. I've still got about a third of a cup of coffee. But the number of people that tell me, oh, by the way, you can lose weight by taking this pill and using this gizmo. You don't have to move your butt. You can stay glued to the couch. Be my guest. I'll tell you, if that worked, we would not have so many people overweight right now. If the spiritual community were doing what they claim to do and talking about peace and enlightenment and brotherhood, if they were in fact doing that, we would not be having so many conflicts. Now, I did find out from somebody just today or yesterday that apparently we have less wars going on today than we did a decade ago. Well, this is fantastic. Now, if we can get people to stop bullying each other and stop talking down to each other and beating the heck out of each other because you're a different flipping skin color, then we're making real progress. I mean, every little bit helps, absolutely. But if you're going to be in a position of leading, which means, like I said, if you're walking down the street and any one person is following you, and I don't mean they're following you where you're going, I mean, you're going down the street, they're going down the street. You're a leader. Behave as such. And this message is simple. Working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay, this idea that we are supposed to treat each other, treat each other as you desire to be treated. I've seen people do that. And I'm thinking, if I desire more pepper on my food, I'll do that weird thing. I'll pick the pepper up, right? I'll pick the pepper up and I'll put it and shake it over my own food. I came to the understanding that I can wish for $1 million all I'd like. Okay. The odds of mine getting that $1 million without doing anything, not good. Okay. The reality of it is, as a leader, it is up to you to make things happen. It is not up to you to go, like I heard it years ago and I forget who it was. One of the TV evangelists did it. And I didn't mind him doing it. But it absolutely stunned me that people followed his idea. He got in front of the TV and he started screaming at the TV and pounding on his pulpit going, I got a message from God. And God told me if I don't have $8 million in the bank by Friday, he's calling me home. Please get me $8 million. Now, I have no problem with somebody saying, hey, I require money. Please send. I'm quite willing to accept money myself. What didn't make sense is why so many people gave this one individual money to stop him from being called home. God doesn't care how much money you've got. God doesn't care what color your skin is. Okay. And rest assured, I'm in pretty much the same boat. To me, it doesn't make any difference. Yeah. I don't think in your case, LA, that's called helping impact, but we'll go with it. I met a gentleman while I was in Reno that I literally asked him how he managed to get a grip like he did. Yeah, I have no idea there, Philip. You'd think he had the money and the ability to make whatever he wanted, desired. Why does he need the money? But no, I met a chap, and I mean, he was powerfully built in the first place. But when he shook my hand, he almost crushed the thing, quite by accident. He didn't pull any sort of stupid stunt and go, "Oh, I'm stronger than you are. Watch this," and crush. He was just shaking my hand, right? So I had to go back and ask him what the heck he did to get that kind of a grip. I don't know, I don't know, LA, but I do know this, that, Jefferson Starship is well worth it. In my opinion, they had some pretty good music. But, when you meet me, you'll find, when you do get around to meeting me, you will find that I will treat everybody exactly the same way. What he did, because I asked him point blank, I mean, he was built anyway, but I kid you not, his grip was something bizarre. And what he did, he says it took a while, but he grabbed one of the exercise balls and he just kept squeezing it. He said it took him months, but all he did was squeeze it. Right? Then I found out, and I think it may have been LA I was talking to, that if you do that and you roll it around, I'll be able to get my left hand working properly again. But this chap, he goes, it took months. It was not overnight. Right? So when I go down to an appropriate store, I will be picking up something to that effect. Because the reality of it is, I desire to be in better shape than I've been in decades. Now, I'm already in better shape for my own purposes than I was 30 years ago. I was so happy with myself. I told you guys I was going to start exercising. I now can actually do sit-ups in my bed. I still don't use the floor, but that's because when I lay on the floor, I get vertigo. But laying on my bed, I can now actually do sit-ups. Yeah, LA goes, soft dog toys. Balls are great for it. I never even thought of it, but there's a pet shop right in town here. I love the way the guy treats his animals. It was terrible. The one day, one of his tropical fish tanks broke, and he lost all the fish in it. And I'll tell you, the guy was one step shy of being in tears. Not because he lost the money, but because of the animals that he couldn't save. I think he said he saved one. But I never thought about the dog toys. But absolutely a brilliant idea there, LA. So I will be able to go and get that. I'll go and get that from him. I won't bother going to another shop. See if he's got one and that'll do the job. Because I'm telling you, I desire to be, at this point, I know I'm going to be a leader. It's just that simple. I had no intention of getting up there, but apparently that's where I've gone. Yeah. LA goes, save you about $20 on medical balls. Yeah, and let's say, from my standpoint, that works quite nicely. For me, I will improvise quite readily. Like when I started working and looking into weightlifting and what have you, they suggested grabbing a gallon jug like you have for milk and using that for starting weights if you didn't have them. Susan, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Yeah, absolutely. Phelps going, Michelangelo was a very skilled sculptor. I started on just before I went on the holiday of working on my left hand writing. It is time to put my body back together properly. This is why I say, when I say this is what I'm working with, These are tools that work like an absolute charm. You know, now when I went down to Reno, I only took a couple of books with me. Okay, I ended up selling them. Simply because, like I told people, I'm bringing them down. You won't have to pay the shipping. And when I figure out where I'm going next, right, and when I've got time, like I know in August, and I keep going there, and that's wrong. I keep forgetting where the heck I'm heading in August. I'm going down into New Mexico. I know this for a certainty. And I'm going into Salt Lake City. But in both cases, I'm going down for a very specific purpose. If somebody desires me on their show, I will absolutely come down to a convention and talk. Absolutely. And in a case like that, I will bring books with me, which bypasses the whole idea of shipping. But I only go where I'm invited. So, that's how that goes. Do I go hunting for people that desire me to come down? I figure the people that really are looking for me, if you can't find me, there's a little bit of a complication. It's not like I'm exactly hiding. But everything I talk about what is absolutely necessary for us to change this world, in spite of the politicians, the spiritual guides, the industry moguls, in spite of how they're dealing with people. Okay? We have the ability as a collective society to change the way the world is running. But we've got to start dealing with it. Philip, the answer is yes. I think the one for next year is being set up. He hasn't fully decided, but when I was talking to him, sounds like he's looking at either Las Vegas or somewhere down in Arizona. There's a spot down there. Now, I have no idea what he's got planned, but most conventions, if I get invited to them and I've got the finances to do it, I'll make the trip. I have come to the conclusion that this is what I'm going to be doing. It's like I told my other half. I have now simply accepted the fact that I will be, opening the door and dealing with energy healing for people that require it, or for people that desire it. On the whole, do I do it for free? Not a prayer. But like I told one person I was talking to just the other day, they've got a pup that is in an absolute disastrous way. Like I told them, that one I will do for free. I will do what I can for them. It's just that simple. I cannot call it Reiki. Okay. Essentially, it is correct, but here's the thing. I've never been trained. The Reiki masters, on the whole, deal with seven major chakras. The really good ones deal with 9. I deal with 28. But I've never been trained. I just have Reiki masters that come to me looking for help because I heal at a rate that is almost unprecedented. Which is why when I said I had a minor heart attack while I was in Reno, I turned around, 3 times more. I got told, for instance, that working on somebody's foot chakras are apparently a minor chakra. So by working on that chakra, vibing, not a problem. Glad you could join us. I was told those were minor chakras. So by working on those chakras, the small of the back, the one cerebral cortex, and the 6 that are what I call wing chakras that literally run from your shoulder 45 degrees out and about 2-inch differences. Yes, I know those chakras are outside the human body, but so is the energy field. By working on those chakras and connecting them and opening them up properly, I reminded a young lass how to walk after being trapped in a wheelchair for 3.5 years. So do I call it Reiki? Not a prayer. I've never been trained, I can't call it. Or more to the point, I won't call it. It's like when people tell me, oh, I'm an energy healer and I just have to put my hand on you. If a person is claiming to be an energy healer, they have no reason to physically touch you. It's just, that's my opinion, but energy doesn't require contact. But have I decided to open that door? Yeah, I have. I still question my own abilities, so let's just be clear on that. But there was no functional denying the results of what I worked with. Absolutely, Susan. Susan's just saying, that, where are we? The Reiki is a wonderful place to start, but there's so much more to that. Oh, yeah, way more. See, I agree with you in vibing. Here's the thing. The entirety of existence was the order side of things. Oh, Spite Fairy, didn't see you coming in. Welcome aboard. Glad you could join us. And yes, I did see the 15-minute warning. Yeah, that makes it a little rough. And Robert's going, 99% of the people I help, I couldn't touch if I wanted to. Most are in another country. Now, yes, there are those of you that will say, well, if it's a natural ability, you shouldn't be charging. I'm telling you, I either charge or I got to find a different way to make a living. Because this idea of waiting for the finances to straighten out from some sort of gift, not something I'm willing to wait for. But I have decided I am going to open that door. Okay. Now, I was here lifetimes ago doing the same thing. At that time, I didn't charge. Didn't work out all that well. At least not from my standpoint. Matter of fact, on one of those little endeavors, I had the pleasure of being burned at the stake. Okay. Not a fun time. But I did get even on that one. But like I said, if you are a leader by choice or by circumstance, in any event, it is time to start treating people around you in the way, in the way that you desire to be treated. Do not treat people like garbage. And way too many people are being taught to do just that. How many people do you know that stand in front of people and go, I deserve this treatment. I own such and such. I did such and such. That is the last thing that's going to get my attention. I had one guy tried telling me that he deserved better treatment because he owned this and this and this and this. I looked at him and I said, and I care why. It is amazing to me how poorly people have figured out how to treat each other. Where are we? Let us refresh this and see where we're sitting. The reality of it is this. You have a choice as an individual, and it's exactly the same choice that I've got. Okay. You can either leave this world in a better state than what it was in when you got here, or you can turn it into an absolute unmitigated disaster. Your call. And somebody told me the other day, oh, I'm definitely interested in peace. I looked at him and I went, really? Somebody is throwing rocks at your roof like pebbles, and your first instinct is to grab your gun and go outside? This is not a peaceful action. It's like the geniuses. Oh, there absolutely does, Susan. The fact of the matter is that Nathan, long time no see. Glad you could pop in. The reality of it is, Susan, you are right. There has to be an exchange for services, even when it's a natural ability. Okay. Now, the reality is, money is just a simple way to put it. Yeah. Phil goes, I would have told him, congratulations on owning that. Would you like a complimentary breath mint while you wait? That's just terrible. In a nutshell, Nathan, the trip down there, the flights were a nightmare. The trip itself was phenomenal. Once I got into Reno, the trip was phenomenal. There were some hiccups, but the important factor from my end came off in spades. It was just brilliant. But will I make some of the same mistakes I did before? No, I'll find all sorts of new ones. The fact of the matter is, when we are dealing with leadership, how you claim to be a leader, how you operate as a leader, will be drastically and detrimentally impacted if you treat the people that you're supposedly leading as garbage. Think of it this way, and I'm just going to pick on Nathan for a second. Nathan's got a wonderful show, so absolutely, if you get the chance to drop in and listen to his show, pay attention, listen, drop in and listen to it. If you like what he says, give him a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of it, because it's that sharing that is going to help everything start to grow. Working together, we can make it happen. But let me ask you this, and even you, Nathan, can answer this. If you treated your guests like garbage, how many guests do you think would be lined up to come on your show? Okay. The reality of it is we have to take ownership for our own shortfalls. Nobody out there is perfect. I sure as heck am not. Okay. But I have a massive, no doubt there, Philip. Philip just goes, 0. I have a massive problem with bullies. And amazingly enough, I don't deal with them very well at all. It's with other people or towards me. And I've warned people about it. I've got a temper. And I'm not proud of the temper. I'm very cautious of it because I know what can happen. But as a leader, I am quite willing to say, hey, by the way, I've got a temper. Don't cross this line because it's not going to end well. This is not because I say, I'm telling you do this, so do this. I'm telling you, you've got the choice, but the outcome is not going to be an enjoyment. I honestly don't know what's a real good one. Phil's going, what's effective bully repellent? Depends on the bully and depends on who you are, on your outlook. Most bullies, especially when they call me names, and I've been called a lot of names, but for me, what I used to do when I was younger was people would call me a name, or tell me something that was wrong. Thanks, LA. And I'd list off a whole pile of other things that were wrong with me. Quite often that took the wind out of the sail. Now, we've just been told we are down to the 5-minute mark. That said, okay, because that's usually the mark I look for. And thankfully, LA does a fabulous job of keeping me on top of that. So I do want to say, tomorrow we are going to look at leadership and talking about how you yourself can take your life, however it is, can bring your life into an effective leadership position. Okay. And we're going to do this. If you've got questions about it, absolutely ask. As a matter of fact, same rule applies. If you have any question, even if it's not in that field, that we're talking about, ask it anyway. Okay. But tomorrow we're going to deal with individual leadership and how to really become a leader of your own life. Then we're going to now tomorrow is Saturday. Sunday we're going to look at it on the global side. Then on Monday we're going to look at literally the off-worlders and how leadership works there. And you'll find the similarities are mind-boggling. Okay, they're just absolutely bizarre. But the one thing I do want to say is thank you so very much for sharing your time with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I do look forward to seeing you again, seeing you again tomorrow, because I'm done with holidays now for a while. Okay, next one will probably be another year down the road, but, well, no, that's not true. I'm taking 2 weeks off at the end of August. Okay, but until we meet again, do take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.